Hello, my name is Ed Brown, Managing Director at the American Academy of Advanced Thinking, and your host for Insights in Education. Today I will be speaking with Mitchell Levy, the AHA Guy, in our talk titled How Educators Can Develop Student Thought Leaders That Transform Industries. Just to give you some background on Mitchell. Mitchell Levy is the AHA Guy at the AHA That, which is a fast and easy, super social, self-publishing book platform for those wanting to have a megaphone. He is an accomplished entrepreneur who has created 20 businesses in Silicon Valley, including 4 publishing companies that have published over 800 books. Wow. Mitchell is an international best-selling author with 58 business books, has provided strategic consulting to over 100 companies, and has advised over 500 CEOs on critical business issues, and has been chairman of the board of a NASDAQ-listed company. Help me welcome Mitchell to Insights in Education.
Wow. Ed, thanks. I actually, first time hearing that bio that way, and it's really well done. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mitchell. First of all, I was intrigued by the AHA Guy monitor. How did you become the AHA Guy?
It's a great question. You want the long story or the short one for that?
Let's go with the brief one.
Okay, the brief one comes down to a very simple thought. Anyone who has a conversation with me, if it's a 15-minute or a 30-minute conversation, you're going to walk away with at least 1, 2, or 3 ways to think about the world and what you do in a slightly different way, hence the aha moment. And that's the important part, the exciting part for me, and this should be true for any educator, is turning the light on in their students, turning the light on in the people they're talking to, having them think about the world in a slightly different way, i.e. an aha.
Okay. And I know you're a manager in the space of thought leadership, and a lot of people define thought leadership in different ways. How do you define thought leadership?
You know, it's an interesting comment or question because thought leadership has been a certain way for a large number of years, and it's going through a radical transformation and will be so much different tomorrow than it is today. So the old world of thought leadership is one in which we crown somebody to be the resident expert in a particular area. We had 3 TV stations and a handful of publishers, and they'd pick somebody and make them the king or queen of a particular topic area. Their book would sell like wildfire. They do speaking and consulting, and that would be, quote unquote, the thought leader. And the thought leader was stand up above the rest. You know, they didn't interact with people. They would speak and say, "You jump," and they expected, and their audience said, "How high?" Mm-hmm. Well, we don't want that today. We want something different. We want, because there's so much content and there's so much expertise, and by the way, the information that anyone has or needs to get is at their fingertips. It's simply a Google search away. And so there are a number of people who are experts at a particular area, and so we want more knowledge, we want more information, but we want it from people we know, like, and trust. So what I want to do is point people to a website, and I have a definition of thought leadership, and I'll talk about that quickly. If you go to thinkaha.com, and that is our consulting website, we go into corporations and turn experts into recognized thought leaders. Go to thinkaha.com, and there's a tab for thought leadership. One of the elements of the tab is a thought leadership funnel, which is basically the sales funnel turned into a thought leadership funnel. The first tab is a definition of thought leadership, and it's a simple 2x2. And 2x2s are simply on one axis is one concept, and the other axis is another. And this 2x2 is audience by content. And so what's interesting is what audience, if you think about it, what audience are you going after? So as a thought leader, as an educator, which, by the way, thought leaders are educators and practitioners. So as an educator and a practitioner, what audience are you going after? And what content do you need to get to that audience? And what I like to say, if you're completely unknown and you have no content, then you're nobody. You're out there. However, what's really fascinating is if you have a really large audience, but a very narrow set of content, I sort of look at that person as the evangelist. The person who really is the thought leader is the person who has, and I'm putting up my fingers and putting the double quotes, the right amount of content for the right audience. Okay. Right? So you don't need to know everything. You don't need to know the entire world. You don't need to advertise to the world if the world is not the right audience. And so I think that's what's the definition of the thought leader of tomorrow? It's the person who you recognize as an expert, the person who technically you know, like, and trust, and they're giving you just the right amount of information for you to feel comfortable with them, right? So your thought leader of tomorrow could be your next door neighbor, could be the fellow practitioner in the other room, could be, you know, the person who's teaching, who's one of your professors but happens to be very knowledgeable in the area. And you say, hey, you've solved this problem. What have you done? And you know what? That's your thought leader. It's your recognized expert who's going to help you navigate what you need to do to get from where you are today to where you need to go tomorrow.
Okay. I guess that's the encyclopedia dictionary, because you want to give us a robust concept behind thought leadership. From your perspective, what is your short story behind thought leadership? How did you come to this concept? What was the aha moment for you?
Oh, how did I get there? Oh, even better question. If I'm looking at the evolution of what I've done, I was in the corporate space. The last time I actually had a job was 1997. I was running the e-commerce component of Sun's supply chain, and I saw a trend. What I like to do as an entrepreneur is I like to see a trend and get in front of it. So the trend then, as you can imagine or remember, is e-commerce. Mm-hmm. And so I became, according to Esther Dyson, I became Mr. E-commerce. And so I ran 5 different conferences. It turns out that I did a lot of work with Silicon Valley universities and created 4 different executive business programs and over 70 courses, all focused on e-commerce. I did tons of consulting, joined the board of a public company, and focused on e-commerce and e-commerce implementation. And the only story I'll tell you is I can't even count on one hand how many CEOs of companies I talked to who actually said to me, hey, we will never do commercial transactions over the internet. And a handful of those companies are not available or are not around anymore today.
Understandably so.
And what happened to me, which was interesting, and this is one of the things that's important as for an educator teaching the student body, is what happened to me is one day I was making a ton of money on speaking and consulting on e-commerce, and then we had the dot bomb. It's when the market crashed. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with e-commerce anymore. And one day, the value of everything I was doing went to zero, right? So it was like, well, one day I was really hot, and one day I was really nothing. And what I realized, it wasn't me, it was the market changed. Mm-hmm. So I ended up doing a couple other things, and then the next trend I caught was the democratization of book publishing. In 2005, I started a book publishing company. I now have 4. We sold one of them along the way. And what was fascinating is I did what I made the mistake that many publishers do, and that is I try to create the next Chicken Soup of the Soul series. So the branding that I made was the branding of the company, right? And I have brands like Happy About, Superstar Press, Quick to Publish, 42 Rules. We also published for Synopsys, a $1.5 billion EDA firm. And what happened is when the press started talking about the democratization of book publishing, Mitchell Levy's brand wasn't well known, but it was the company brands. And so I didn't get the type of press that I thought I could have. What I ended up realizing is I was missing an important element. And that is you can no longer talk about as a company being a thought leader. You need to talk about the individuals inside the company being thought leaders. Okay. So I went back to consulting, and I actually, it turns out I sold my first publishing company. And then what happened is my first client was so excited that I knew so much about publishing, I realized I needed to keep the rest of the company, so I did. And what I realized it was important to, and the consulting I did, is we go into companies today and we help turn their experts into recognized thought leaders. And what we do and what's important is companies, many still recognize this, many still don't. Companies need to recognize that individuals inside, their employees, need to be out there as recognized experts, because they're going to be touching new prospects. They're going to be touching and validating their products and services to existing customers. And the company is not this faceless brand. This company is made up of a series of employees, many of which are experts, which need to be given credit as experts because they're going to draw in new business. And so that's what the consulting practice is about, and it sort of stemmed from the fact that I kind of made the mistake when I was doing my publishing companies of not seeing the fact that it's not about the corporate brand only. It's also about the individual brand. And so that's how I started focusing real heavily on thought leadership.
Okay. And I know that you have also a process that came out of that experience or sometime after. What process or approach should educators take to help students become thought leaders?
Well, here's where it gets really funny. As a publisher, we used to publish, the goal was always to create books that were easier for the business executive to create so that their book could be written and they could be the expert in their space because, quote unquote, they've written the book. And one of to simplify it, we did a book that was based on a series of blog articles. That's 42 Rules. It's comprised of 42 500-word articles. We did another series, Think Aha, that was largely based on the Twitter-sized quotes. So 140 quotes makes up a physical book. And so we started by creating physical books in both areas, and particularly on the Think Aha series, we had authors who wrote their books, and they would write 140 bite-sized quotes, and then we would physically publish them. And at some point in time, we said, hey, this is kind of cool. Let's make sure we get to share those. We created an iPhone app. And the iPhone app would make it easy to share those quotes that were in the Think Aha book. So as a publisher, it made absolute sense that we would have the author write the physical book first, and then we would turn it into an ebook and put it on the iPhone app. Well, as soon as I became the thought leader architect, started to do consulting again, helping companies do their thought leadership, I kind of looked at that process and I go, what was I thinking? That was one of the many aha moments for me, but this is the aha moment that says, Mitchell, why would you want to force somebody to spend the time and energy and money to create a physical book that we distribute when it's a whole lot easier if we make it an online book? And so we took the iPhone app down, we made it a web-based app, and it's now a platform called AhaThat, AHATHAT.com. And what we do, and we've simplified the processes so that now we've had over 300 authors write their AHA books, which is comprised of 140 bite-sized quotes. We've had over 300 authors write their books in 8 hours or less. Okay. And then if they want to turn it into physical books, they can. But the ability for somebody to write their book in a weekend on a very focused topic is something that's really, really, really powerful. Okay. Now you asked me about educators, right?
Right.
What can educators do? Well, what's interesting about an AHA book, and one of the things that we've done with educators is we actually have a couple price points for our business. You know, somebody could write an AHA book. We charge $450 for that. They can then turn that or have us turn that AHA book into a PDF and a Kindle, so they're officially published as a Kindle author. We charge $950 for that, and then we could also turn it into paperback and hardcover. What we've done is we have a scholarship program for teachers and students where if they want to write and publish their AHA book, they could follow the processes, and just so you know, that is at ahathat.com/author. We have an 8-step process, so they could follow the processes and write their books in 8 hours, or they're writing from scratch, and remind me if I don't get back to it, they could crowdsource their content with their students, and we will publish it for free. So all they do is apply for the scholarship, and we give it out for free. Now, why would you want to do that? We've had one of my favorite examples is we actually had an author, actually she was a teacher in the Philippines. She was teaching the 4th year of university, and it was a marketing class. So she had her students all contribute to an AHA book. And what we decided to do, and she had 72 students, by the way, and so each student contributed 1 or 2 AHA messages, and, you know, with 140 messages, most of them created 2. And what we did is we also included the name of the student and their Twitter handle. Most of them had Twitter handles. Some we used their LinkedIn profile instead. We included the names of all the students as part of the book, and we show that in the book description. She was so excited when she got back to me about 6 months after we published the book, and she had mentioned that over 50% of the students talked to her about them getting their first jobs because they were part of the book. And I was just so excited to hear that. And what I think that really is, particularly when you graduate from college and you don't have a lot of practical work experience, what it really was is they had a story to tell. And the story was how they contributed to the book and how they made the book the most popular shared book on the AHA platform. And it was a great learning experience, an application of a social media platform that helps create thought leadership for the students themselves.
Okay, so when I think about what you just said, and I want to unpack this a little bit because we are talking about thought leadership, so that was an excellent way that students can become a thought leader by actually publishing, whether they publish on their own or publishing groups. That's effective. When I think about what you said, does your AHA that process for thought leadership, does that process, is that easier to go that route than just to publish on Kindle, or is your, because Kindle gives you, put your manuscript on there and then put a cover on there and you have a book published in 24 hours. From your vantage point, does your AHA that process do something differently?
Oh, absolutely. I think, so by the way, Amazon is absolutely an amazing company, and there will be one of a handful of, with all the science fiction movies of we live under the rule of 5 companies, Amazon will be one of them. So okay. They're just dominant. They're dominant in everything they do, and Jeff Bezos is amazing. There is nothing wrong, and it's certainly powerful to publish on the Kindle platform. The thing is, when you're publishing and using a self-publishing company like that, what happens is you're personally responsible for doing the cover design. You're personally responsible for doing the copy edit and the content edit and making sure the content is cohesive and will be powerful for the reader. That's part of what we do. So even at the lower level, the $450 level, we will create a cover design. We will do a copy edit and a content edit. So if the content is really crap, we let our authors know because we won't publish it, right? So basically we're protecting them from publishing stuff they'll be embarrassed with.
So you do a little more holding down the line than maybe Kindle in terms of assuring that the quality is there, the typo and grammar is on point, and other things that bring forth the book is on par with the quality that we've come to enjoy.
Oh, absolutely. And then, of course, for those people that upgrade to where we take the AHA book and we put it into a Kindle version, what we also do is we take the best practices in marketing to be able to use what's called KDP Select, the Kindle Direct publishing platform where you go direct. And if you give Kindle the ability to have exclusive rights to the ebook for 90 days, you have the ability to take 5 of those days and give the book away for free. The benefit of giving your book away for free for 5 days is you now get more people who are downloading and giving testimonials of your book. So when the dollar amount is turned back on, you now have more downloads, more testimonials, more 5-star reviews, hopefully if your book is good enough. And so it's powerful. So we keep on top of the best practices of Kindle marketing, and we apply those as well for you. So it's not necessarily an either or. And also what you don't get in Kindle, what you get with the AHA That platform, is every unique AHA message. So with Kindle, you have a book. With AHA That, you have 140 bite-sized messages, any one of which could be compelling to the person on the other side who's reading it potentially on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, or in other locations.
Okay. And just as we come to a close, what impact do you believe that thought leadership will have on the future of education as we move forward?
Well, I think education's interesting, right? With the information that now has everyone has any information they have at their fingertips. To me, as an educator, what you have to ask today or teach today is one, how do you ask the right question? B, how do you determine the results that you're getting, which are valid and which aren't? Right? So that's really, to me, what education's all about, is if you ask the right question, the information you want is typically a Google search away. Now, when you look at all the results, what's valuable, what's not valuable to you? Well, if you now factor and lay on top of that the concept of thought leadership, you can now reach the answers to people who are more recognized thought leaders. And as more recognized thought leadership content is available, the answers that come back will bubble to the top. So you'll have the search engines like Google's and others bundle up to the top the information that comes across from people who are quote-unquote recognized thought leaders. And so as educators, it's important to teach our growing, our kids graduating, how to ask the right question, how to make sure they can determine the results, and how to make sure that they personally are found. And that's what's kind of cool about the AHA That platform, is any teacher today could be working with their students and helping them get content out, helping them sort of digest what they're already teaching today and have it show up in the voice of the students themselves. You go to the platform, one of the fun things we did, we had an author who interviewed 25 of her friends and did a book called Millennial Pet Peeves. So you can go to the platform and just do a search on millennial, and you'll see that's one of the books that will pop up. And it's kind of fun as an exercise that she interviewed a ton of her friends. She got good information back, and she may not have considered herself an expert on millennial pet peeves prior to the writing process. But after interviewing 25 people and putting and digesting the information and basically putting it into bite-sized words that people can really read and consume, she is absolutely now an expert on that pet peeve area, because she can quote other people who have created and had pet peeves besides her own. And I think that's a powerful way to be teaching our up-and-coming generation some of the techniques they could use today to be successful tomorrow. And that is becoming recognized experts, becoming thought leaders in areas that they're learning. And if the teacher is by definition an expert, a thought leader, a knowledgeable person in that space, helping their students get recognized and understand that is really powerful.
Okay. Now, I know you said that the AHA platform does a lot of those things and aids educators and students in manifesting that publishing intellectual property. Are there any social media sites that you find that are valuable for individuals to establish themselves as thought leaders?
In the social media perspective, I think the number one site today is LinkedIn, in terms of having your name and profile. And just for educators listening, LinkedIn is not a place where you put your resume. Okay, right. LinkedIn is a place where you need to actually, it is your 24/7 billboard. It is the place where what happens today in today's world, if you meet somebody and they have enough interest in wanting to follow through, whether or not you meet them physically or meet them online, what are they going to do? They're going to Google your name. When they Google your name, what pops up? Well, the social media sites are spending a large amount of money to make sure that their site pops up with that person's name. And so if somebody types in your name and you get popped up on LinkedIn, what what do they see? And the answer has to be they have to see enough to want to go further.
Right.
So LinkedIn is the primary one from a business and thought leadership perspective. But if you're looking at today's generation, 13 to 18-year-olds are called plurals instead of millennials. Plurals are using Instagram and Snapchat. So what's interesting is trying to make sure, as an educator, that you at least know the tool sets that are out there. And I would say, and the reason I mentioned LinkedIn, there isn't anyone in the world that shouldn't have a LinkedIn profile, right, and shouldn't at least present themselves in a way that I'll take that back. There are people who want to be invisible. My wife is very happy to be invisible and would be very happy if her boss didn't tell her she had to have a LinkedIn profile, right? So there are people in the world who don't want that, who want to be invisible. But most of the current generation who are coming into the workforce, when you go to get your next job, I guess the way to think about this, when you go to get your next job, in a very short period of time, we all are going to have and I'm going to use the word Yelp, but I'm going to use it as a verb. We're going to have a Yelp score over our head. When that Yelp score is going to be, so for instance, if somebody's applying a student's applying to work at Chipotle, the Yelp score is going to be, they worked at McDonald's in the past. What type of employee were they, right? Same sort of thing. If somebody's looking for an assistant professorship at a university, how were they at the last school? And that Yelp score is going to follow us around, and it's going to be a personalized Yelp score. That is, how did we interact with people like that? You can imagine in the business world, if you want to speak at an event, and the event coordinator is going to reach out to you, you're going to see their Yelp score of how they dealt with people like you in the past. So what's interesting is not just being on LinkedIn, but being in the types of places that are going to present you and who you are and what you do well, because we all are, by definition, going to have some Yelp score hanging over us that's going to be communicating to the world how effective we are at what we do.
Okay. Well, Joe, a lot of information. I'm sure listeners want to get more information at some point in the future. What's the best way for people to contact you?
You could always just Google my name, Mitchell Levy, Mitchell, Levy. Connect to me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. If you want to connect to me on Facebook, please do, but tell me why, because we have such a limited number of people we can connect to. Probably one of the best ways is go to ahathat.com/author. And what you'll see is an 8-step process for writing an AHA book. And you could start the process, fill out the quotes for step 1, and then steps 4 or 5 will be where you submit the AHA book in. So you could just write a handful of quotes and the actual purpose of what you want to do, submit it in and say, hey, listen, I would like to make sure I have time with Mitchell Levy to go through this book and see if it makes sense. And my team will make sure that I connect with you or that we get connected. And I'm happy to brainstorm and communicate with any administrator, educator who wants to help the people they're working with be more effective at what they do. That's to me, my AHA every day is waking up and helping people be successful, and I'm happy to do that with anyone who's listening.
Thank you, Mitchell, for being a guest. This is Ed Brown for another episode of Insights in Education, and we'll talk with you soon.